Our 2016 Monte Bello Chardonnay comes from select parcels on Monte Bello Ridge, where we are growing roughly 17 acres worth of Chardonnay split into 15 parcels. So our 15 parcels of Chardonnay growing in the limestone soil, some show great minerality in the finished wine, other areas less so. And so once the vintage is done and all the lots have been brought in, barrel fermented, we do a blind tasting to select and assemble the wines of that vintage. For Monte Bello, the criteria is really finding the lots that have the strongest expression of limestone, that nice touch of kind of wet stone in the finish. There's a lot more texture and weight to the wine. It's a more serious Chardonnay, one that also takes a lot more time in barrel and in bottle to evolve. So 2016 was and technically the last year of the drought, the 5-year drought that we had here in California. The vines were really water stressed in 2016. And so what that had an effect on is it made the grapes much more concentrated. Smaller berries, smaller clusters, and it pushed the vines to really put a lot more flavor into the fruit. So that fruit that came to the winery, loaded into a press, was then extracted. The juice was barreled down for natural yeast fermentation. And in 16, the yeast actually had a bit of a struggle to work through because the vines were so stressed that the vines weren't able to put enough nutrients from the soil into the fruit. And so that kept the yeast from being able to ferment very quickly. So fermentations took much longer in 16. Malolactics, likewise, just because of the higher acid, it kept the malolactics from taking place as quickly as they normally do. So it just meant we were in the barrels much longer on the lee, and working the lee, doing batonnage throughout the springtime helped bring some nice texture and complexity into the wine. Then we sat down and did our selection. The first wine assembled was the estate. It then went to bottle much sooner than this wine. This actually had to spend about another 10 months in barrel. And during that time, it was able to finish its malolactic. It was able to then gravity clarify. And the ideal for us with this wine is to be able to get to bottling with a wine that's naturally clarified with gravity, so that there's no fining and no filtration required. And that's what we were able to achieve in this beautiful wine with pristine clarity and a fantastic nose. I mean, it's beautifully evolved. That really nice mountain fruit. There's kind of a touch of apricot, baked dessert, some brioche that we get from surly aging. So highly complex nose. Really powerful palate. It's very oily and full of texture and high acid. You feel the acid really strongly in the mid palate and into the finish. And in the finish, you get that touch of that really positive kind of surly brioche oak toastiness. It's a flavor that's really desirable, and I find in a lot of really great white Burgundies. And it's something I'm trying to coax out of the barrels as we're working the barrels throughout the time in the cellar. You know, letting the wine rest on that leaf for all that length of time, it really can contribute some of those really positive flavors. Yeah, extremely powerful wine. This is going to age really nicely over the next several decades, I would imagine, with this much acidity and intensity of flavor. So pretty excited about this vintage. I hope you enjoy it.